So the Eagles just had a dominating performance in their win over the Bucs on Monday night, with certain guys on the offensive side of the ball going off on the Bucs defense, including one who was proving himself to be an absolute star to begin the year. And then defensively, the Eagles were suffocating as the Bucs offense had trouble getting anything going all night, and a few guys on that side of the ball continued to show why they could be stars in the making as well. Most notably Jalen Carter, who was just unbelievable on Monday night. And I mean, overall, this Eagles team proved just how scary they can be in their Week 3 win, but it definitely wasn't perfect, as the Birds still didn't play up to their potential, in large part because of some struggles from their most important player. So is that something that could be a major concern for this team moving forward? Well, we're going to talk about all that in this video today, so let's not waste any time and get straight into it. So the Philadelphia Eagles are just one of 3 remaining undefeated teams in the NFL after beating the Buccaneers on Monday night by a final score of 25-11 to advance to 3-0. And now after this win, the Eagles are officially in the early lead in what could end up being a tight race in the NFC East, so obviously that's super important. And as for this game, the Eagles were able to get the win in dominating fashion, as they were pretty much in control for the entirety of the contest. They controlled the time of possession, as they had the ball for 39 minutes to the Bucs 21. They also had almost 3 times more total yards than the Bucs did, and overall, they just looked like the better team both offensively and defensively, even while not playing a perfect game by any means, as the Birds unquestionably made plenty of mistakes that prevented the score differential from being even more extreme than it ended up being. And I mean, this game could have easily ended up being like a 38-11 blowout or something like that, but there were a couple things that held the Birds back that they're going to need to clean up moving forward. Now, we'll get into that a bit later, but first I want to start with the absolute dominance of the Eagles defense on Monday night, because through the first 2 weeks, I think that the overall consensus is that the defense played pretty well, but there were definitely some things that they needed to improve upon. But now after this game, there isn't much to nitpick about how the defense played. I mean, they absolutely shut down the Bucs offense for nearly the entire game. Baker Mayfield had his worst game of the year so far, as he threw for just 146 yards, 1 touchdown and an interception, with a quarterback rating of 34.5. And on top of that, neither Mike Evans or Chris Godwin had really good games, and then on the ground, the Bucs just couldn't get much of anything going, as they ran for just 41 total yards, and their leading rusher in Rachaad White got 14 carries and only finished with 38 yards for a yards per carry average of just 2.7. And overall, the Bucs offense finished with just 174 yards of total offense and just 12 first downs. I mean, the Eagles defense really just wasn't allowing much of anything, and the run defense is something that really stood out to me. I mean, it's not like the Bucs weren't trying to run the ball, they just couldn't against that Eagles defensive line. Jordan Davis and those dudes up front made it absolutely impossible for the Bucs to establish a run game, and they even forced a safety at one point where Nicholas Morrow shot through the gap when the Bucs were on the 1-yard line to tackle Rachaad White in the end zone. And shout out to Nicholas Morrow, by the way, because he's been playing pretty well in Nakobe Dean's absence. But then moving on, the Eagles pass rush was also great, as similarly to the first 2 games, they didn't really rack up a ton of sacks, but the impact was definitely there. I mean, they consistently were able to get pressure on Baker Mayfield when he was dropping back, and they really made it uncomfortable for him all night long. And the leader of this dominant effort by the defensive line was the baby rhino himself, Jalen Carter, as Carter was just an absolute monster in this game. It was definitely his best game in the NFL so far, as he stuffed the stat sheet with 2 tackles, half a sack, a quarterback hit, and 2 forced fumbles. I mean, this dude was making plays all night long. The first forced fumble he had was actually super impressive, as literally the play after he got the half sack with Fletcher Cox, he came flying out of nowhere to absolutely crush Rachaad White, and he made sure to punch the football when he delivered the hit. The ball popped out, and James Bradbury was able to recover it. And then Carter's second forced fumble then came later in the night on Baker Mayfield, but the Bucs did recover that one. But then to add on to that, Carter also had a big hand in the safety that the Eagles got, as he had a nice push from the interior along with Jordan Davis that made it possible for Nicholas Morrow to make the play. And on top of that, Carter also led the team in total pressures on Monday night with 5, which puts him at 15 total pressures on the season so far, which is tied for second in the league among defensive tackles behind guess who? Javon Hargrave. So I think it's safe to say that Carter has just had an unbelievable start to his career. I mean, he might already be a star as a rookie, and people around the league have taken notice. Tyrann Mathieu, the Saints star safety, said that Jalen Carter has Chris Jones ability. Ross Tucker said that he may already be a Pro Bowl player in his rookie year, and Darius Slay is just so impressed with how Carter has started his career, as he said, quote, "That is a grown man. This is crazy." And just like Slay, I know that I couldn't be more impressed with how Jalen Carter has started his career, but what do you guys think? Let me know what you thought of Carter's game last night and just his first few games in general down in the comments. But now, one other guy who I want to spotlight on defense who's kind of proving he could be a star in the making as well is safety Reed Blankenship, as he was pretty impressive in this game after missing week 2 with a rib injury, as he ended up leading the team in total tackles with 7 and solo tackles with 6, plus he also had a pass defended and an interception where he jumped a pass intended for Chris Godwin to give Baker Mayfield put his first interception of the year. And it wasn't just last night that Blankenship looked good, as in week 1 he made his presence felt with the team leading 12 tackles versus the Patriots. So I don't know about you, but I really like what I've seen from Reed Blankenship to start the year, and it's starting to look like he's going to turn out to be an absolute steal by the Eagles. But overall, going back to the defense as a whole, I really like how they played. I mean, they were aggressive, they played fast, they played with intensity, and that's what I like to see. Now, there were some times, especially on that last drive where the Bucs scored a touchdown, that I didn't like how far back the corners were playing the receivers. I do think they maybe got a little bit conservative there at the end, but other than that, again, I'm super happy with the defensive effort, and hopefully they can continue to dominate throughout the rest of the season. But now, switching over to the offense, I think that they had their best game of the year as well, at least in terms of moving the ball, and a huge part of that, just like it was last week versus the Vikings, was their running game, as DeAndre Swift played extremely well versus the Buccaneers after coming off a career performance last week that earned him NFC Offensive Player of the Week, as this week he ended up rushing for 130 yards on just 16 carries for a ridiculous 8.1 yards per carry average. And I do think that his rushing total could have been a little bit higher if the Eagles decided not to kind of rest him towards the end of the game when they were up big, as Kenneth Gainwell got the bulk of the workload down the stretch, as he ended up with 14 carries himself. But going back to Swift, I mean, I really don't think we could have asked for much more from him in the past 2 games. He's been nothing short of amazing. I mean, he's looked quick, explosive, and shifty, and he's also been good at running through contact. Now, it definitely helps that the offensive line has been as incredible as it has creating holes for him. I mean, without them, he definitely would not have had near the amount of success he's having right now, as they're doing a fantastic job creating running lanes for him. I know everyone wants to talk about the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing right now, but we got a pretty good Kelce and Swift combo too, and they've been dominating these past 2 weeks. And as long as Swift stays hot, the Eagles are going to keep riding with him. I mean, as of now, he's second in the NFL in rushing, so hopefully he's able to continue his great season so far throughout the rest of the year, and I just love what I saw from Swift in this game specifically, especially against a pretty good Buccaneers run defense. But someone else who I like what I saw from in this game was A.J. Brown, as after having a game in which he had just 4 catches for 29 yards versus the Vikings, and then we saw some frustration on the sideline, he came out in this game with his best performance of the year, posting 9 catches for 131 yards. I mean, he was easily Jalen Hurts' most reliable target in this game, and he made several big plays, including a crucial 3rd and long conversion in the 4th quarter. So it was definitely great to see AJ have a game like he had. I had predicted this to be his breakout game leading up to it, so I'm glad I was right. And someone else who I guess you could say had a little mini breakout game of his own was Olamide Zaccheaus, as after being pretty much a non-factor in his first 2 games as an Eagle, he stepped up with Quez Watkins out, as he ended up with just 2 catches to be fair, but both were big plays, and one was a touchdown towards the end of the first half that gave the Eagles the lead and momentum. So it was definitely good to see Oz have an impact, and this is going to be interesting to watch with Quez Watkins sidelined for who knows how long. I mean, if Oz continues to perform well, could he potentially take some of Quez's time and earn himself a bigger role? I guess we'll have to see, but let me know what you think about that down in the comments. But yeah, going back to the offense as a whole, I thought it was a really good performance in terms of just moving the ball, but they definitely did leave a lot of points on the table, as the Eagles struggled on Monday when they got into the red zone. I mean, they just couldn't really finish drives consistently the way we're used to seeing from them, and that allowed the Buccaneers to kind of hang around in the game for a while, so give their defense credit for stopping the Eagles offense once they got down there close to the end zone, but for the Eagles, they just got to be better. I mean, if they struggle in the red zone against better teams the way they struggled against the Bucs, it's going to be a big problem, so they're going to have to clean that up. And something else they're going to have to clean up is the turnovers, as they just had too many of those on Monday, some of which came down close to the end zone, and the main culprit of turning the ball over was none other than Jalen Hurts, who did kind of struggle at times on Monday, as he uncharacteristically had 2 interceptions on the night, and this 2-pick performance comes after Hurts didn't have the greatest 2 games to start the year. So some people are starting to be worried about how Hurts is playing, and some are asking the question of whether this is something we should be worried about at this point and moving forward throughout the rest of the season. Well, personally, I'm not worried, and I don't think you should be either. I mean, sure, Hurts has not had an amazing start to the year, but I think in this game, he honestly played pretty well, all things considered. I mean, he was making quick decisions, he was reading the defense well, he seemed to be getting into a rhythm early, and the passing offense really for the first time this year started to seem like it was actually clicking. Now, obviously, we can't have Hurts throwing 2 interceptions in a game, but to be fair, they weren't the worst interceptions in the world. I mean, the first one was clearly a miscommunication between him and DeAndre Swift, so that one I don't really blame him too much for. The second one I did think was a poor decision decision to throw into double coverage like that, but the DB just made a really good play, and it definitely could have been worse. Now, obviously, yes, again, this is something that needs to be cleaned up, and if it becomes a trend, then it'll be something to worry about, but as of now, I'm really not stressing about it. Plus, you gotta take into account the fact that it was raining, and Hurts was also apparently dealing with flu-like symptoms, so with those things considered as well, that just makes me feel better about the situation. But hey, that's just my opinion. I think Hurts is gonna be fine, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. And also, just let me know what you thought of the Eagles' Week 3 win over the Bucs in general down in the comments. I mean, what did you like? What didn't you like? What do you think needs to be fixed? Who impressed you? Just again, let me know any of your thoughts down in the comments. And also, if you did enjoy this video and want to see others like it coming in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss when any future videos are uploaded. Also, drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. And if you want to watch another Eagles video, you should check out this one right here. Now, with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.